Have you ever wondered if the story of the fall truly began in Eden? What if humanity's deception was sown before the first breath of life in Adam? Perhaps, just perhaps, the true beginning of the conflict lies not in the garden, but in the heavens, not in the dust of the earth, but in the stars that silently witnessed the rebellion of a being who dared to covet the throne of the Most High. There is a name that echoes in ancient traditions, not mentioned in Genesis, but whispered in the darkest alleys of apocryphal writings, in the forbidden chants of the Zohar, in the veiled laments of the lost Enoch, a name shrouded in layers of language, buried beneath centuries of doctrine that preferred silence over explanation. Today, we will lift that veil. For the deception that shattered Eve's innocence may have been merely the continuation of a far older plan. A plan orchestrated not by a slithering serpent, but by an angel of light who became shadow. There is something in the text of Genesis that few have noticed, a strange silence between the creation of the heavens and the earth and the formation of man from clay. Between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, there is a chasm that ancient sages called the gap, the interval of ruin, the trace of a prior catastrophe. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. But why would the earth, which God created perfect, be in a state of chaos? Why did darkness cover the abyss if everything the Eternal does is good and complete? Between these lines, a forgotten figure lurks. A being who fell before the clay received a soul, a spirit who tainted the womb of creation before man saw the light of day. It was not man who sinned first. It was an angel, and he did not fall alone. In the writings of Enoch, preserved on the fringes of the Jewish canon, there is mention of angels who descended to Mount Hermon. They were called watchers in the Ethiopian tradition, and among them was a leader, Azazel. Other manuscripts speak of Shemihazah, but there is a name that shines and wounds at the same time, Hillel ben Shachar, the son of the dawn, later translated as Lucifer. The prophecy of Isaiah 14 seems addressed to an earthly king, but its tone is too cosmic, its vocabulary too exalted to be confined to the flesh of Babylon. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star. This is not said of a human sovereign. It is the language of fallen glory, of light turned to shadow. This being does not appear as a common serpent. He is described with glory, with radiant garments, with harps and tambourines. Ezekiel 28 speaks of a guardian cherub, perfect in his ways until iniquity was found in him. He walked among the stones of fire. He was in Eden, but not as Adam. He was there before. Rabbinic tradition, when not stifled by fear of heresy, dares to speculate. Could this angel have been the one who, before Adam, sought to create his own lineage? In the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith is presented as the first woman, made from the same clay as Adam, but who refused to submit. She flees Eden not because of a serpent, but by her own choice. In the Zohar, we find the idea that the other side, the Sitra Achra, operates from before the fall of man. That darkness is not absence, but corrupted presence. The Midrash, at times poetic, suggests there was a prior creation, a prior universe, and that the chaos of the beginning is the scar of that destruction. If so, then the fallen angel who deceived humanity had already deceived celestial legions. And perhaps before slithering, he walked upright among the luminaries. The Hebrew reveals what translations conceal. Nachash, the word used for serpent, can also mean sorcerer, enchanter, radiant being. It is not an ordinary snake. It is a being of language, of power, of beauty. The root of the word is tied to divination. He did not merely speak to Eve, he enchanted her. And the word used for deceive in Genesis, nasha, also carries the idea of seduction, of gentle theft. He did not force, he persuaded. The same method that, according to the book of Enoch, he used to corrupt the other angels. Let us descend, let us take wives for ourselves, let us beget children. Deception always begins with the promise of something greater, of being like God. And so we return to the tree. It is not just any tree, it is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But the word knowledge in Hebrew is da'at, the same used to describe intimacy between man and woman. Adam knew Eve. The serpent's proposal was more than intellectual. It was spiritual, symbolic, perhaps even carnal. Many ancients saw in this act not only disobedience, but a corruption of the seed. That is why Cain is born with different traits. That is why John says that Cain was of the evil one. And Jesus tells the Pharisees, "You are of your father the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning." From the beginning. But which beginning? The fall of man may have been merely a repetition of the fall of an angel. And Eve, deceived, was a mirror of legions that followed the false brilliance of a fallen light. But the story does not end there. Because even when the woman falls, God already sees the seed. Even when the promise is torn, the thread of redemption begins to be woven. From your seed will come one who will crush the serpent's head. The war was declared there, but its origin is earlier, and its resolution, future. Perhaps the true Eden was never a garden, but the heavens, and the serpent was never an animal, but a memory of corrupted glory. Perhaps the fallen angel who deceived humanity was not a stranger, but a former worshipper, now exiled, now furious, now determined to drag down with him all that once shone. But even this deception was foreseen. Because the Lamb was slain before the foundation of the world, before the clay, before the fall, before the serpent, there is a strange symmetry between the beginning of Genesis and the apocalyptic visions of the end. As if what was hidden in the beginning was destined to be revealed in the conclusion. The serpent, which starts as a subtle voice among the trees, reappears as the scarlet dragon in Revelation 12, ready to devour the woman's child. The symbol changes, but the essence remains. The deceiver, the accuser, the adversary, all names converge on the same entity whose mystery predates humanity itself. John does not call him merely devil or Satan. He says, the great dragon, that ancient serpent, called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. The ancient serpent. This implies time, anteriority, cosmic memory. Eve was not the first to hear him. She was only the first to hear him on the earthly plane. But others had already fallen because of his voice. And perhaps he himself had fallen by listening to his own voice, full of pride and desire for ascension. In biblical Hebrew, names are not mere identities, they are spiritual functions. Satan is not a proper name, but a title, the adversary, the accuser. Hillel means brilliance, radiance. When Isaiah describes him as son of the dawn, he is saying this being was born of light, at the threshold of dawn, like a star that sought to rival the sun itself. But stars that try to shine alone fade. In the book of Job, the sons of God sing as creation is laid on its foundations, angels gathered, celebrating. But one of them, perhaps the most beautiful, perhaps the most gifted, perhaps the closest to the throne, desired the song for himself. The Bible does not tell this story in a single book. It scatters it in fragments, pieces, echoes that only the attentive reconstruct. Job, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Genesis, Revelation, Jude, Peter, Enoch. Each offers a mosaic. And at the center of this tapestry of shadows, a figure takes shape, the one who fell from heaven like lightning, the one who, according to Jesus, was already defeated before the cross, because the kingdom he came to establish preceded him. Ancient Kabbalists said that before man there was light, and before light there was desire, and that the first imbalance of the universe was not sin, but the excess of misdirected desire. The desire to become what only Elohim is, the source, the beginning, the end. This desire took form in an angel, not just any angel, an anointed cherub who walked among the stones of fire, a symbol of divine presence. Ezekiel says he was created perfect, but within him grew injustice, and when that brilliance shattered, a third of the stars fell with him. That is why Revelation says the dragon swept a third of the stars with his tail. These stars are symbols of angels. A celestial rebellion precedes the earthly one, and it is this awareness that changes everything. Because Eden was not the beginning of evil. It was merely the stage for its projection into the visible world. Eve, therefore, did not fall out of weakness. She fell under the weight of a war that was already raging before her. The serpent did not speak with the innocence of an animal. It spoke with the cunning of a being who already knew glory and ruin. A being who had been light but became shadow. And that is why God's response to the fall is so immediate, so symbolic, so prophetic. From the woman will come one who will crush your head. God is not merely punishing, he is promising. The war does not end there. It begins, and it begins with a woman. Eve is the gate, Mary is the fulfillment. Between them, a lineage. Between them, a promise. Gnostic writings, particularly the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip, though heterodox, carry echoes of this older spiritual perception. The fall is the memory of a prior war, and the serpent's deception is a reenactment. In some of these traditions, the serpent is called an archon, a corrupted spiritual entity that seeks to trap the human soul in the cycle of ignorance. The language is symbolic but points to the same idea. There is a being older than man who seeks to usurp the plan of redemption. He cannot destroy the Creator, so he tries to pervert creation, beginning with deception, then division, then accusation. That is why the devil is called the accuser of our brothers. He seduces, then accuses. He pushes, then points the finger. It was so with Eve, and it is so to this day. But there is an even deeper detail. In Genesis 3, after the fall, God asks, "Where are you?" Not out of ignorance, but as a summons. And when he confronts Adam, he blames the woman. The woman blames the serpent, but the serpent remains silent. It is the only being that does not respond, because it had already spoken too much. And God does not question it. He sentences it directly. "On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust." This is more than physical punishment. It is a spiritual prophecy. Dust is man. The serpent will feed on man's fall. Its existence depends on the fall of creation, but its defeat will also come from creation, because the dust it swore to devour will one day crush it. There is also the symbolism of the womb. Eve is called mother of all the living, Chava, but her womb now carries conflict. The seed of the woman will be the enemy of the seed of the serpent. And this is mysterious, because serpents do not produce seed in spiritual language. This points to something beyond the flesh, a spiritual lineage, a people who follow the light, and another who follow the lie. That is why Jesus says, "You are of your father the devil." There is a genealogy of truth and another of lies, a lineage of promises, another of rebels. From the beginning, these two seeds coexist, Abel and Cain, Isaac and Ishmael, Jacob and Esau, David and Saul, Christ and the religious system. Always two paths, always one chosen and one rejected. Not because God prefers, but because he sees the heart. And so we return to the fallen angel. It no longer matters if his name was Hillel, Azazel, Samael, or simply the ancient enemy. What matters is his function: to deceive, to divert, to accuse. He appeared as a serpent because he could no longer shine as a star. He traded celestial song for a slithering hiss, and even so, he tried to destroy the image of God imprinted in the clay. But the clay was destined for glory. The fallen image would be restored, and the fallen angel humiliated, because the Messiah did not come as an angel. He came as a man, and not just any man, a man born of a woman. The very womb that was deceived became the portal of redemption. Mary, the new Eve; Jesus, the new Adam; the cross, the new Eden. But this time, the serpent would not speak. It would be silenced, and its head crushed. The silence of the text is not omission. It is intentional, because God's mysteries are not given to the curious, but revealed to those who seek with hunger, and those who seek deeply hear the voices hidden in the subtext of Scripture. They hear the echo of a fall before the fall, the sigh of an angel who wanted to be like God and ended as a serpent, the breath of a spirit who tried to usurp what belongs only to the eternal. And it is this breath of rebellion that continues to haunt human history to this day. Because the fallen angel does not work with the obvious. He hides in symbols, in distorted doctrines, in lies cloaked in half-truths. And while man is content with the surface, he operates in the depths. But there is a secret buried in the heavens, a secret that the prophets saw in visions, that the patriarchs perceived in dreams, that the apostles dared to touch in words. This secret is God's purpose hidden since the foundation of the world, a purpose that involves redemption, reversal, and glory, because the plan was never to prevent the fall, but to redeem through it. The plan was never to avoid deception, but to crush the lie with the truth. The cross was not a divine emergency, it was an eternal decree. That is why the Lamb was slain before the foundation of the world, before the serpent, before the dust, before Eden. The fallen angel thought he had anticipated something. But in truth, he only set in motion what was already written. That is why Paul calls the gospel a mystery, because it is the answer to the primordial deception. It is the counter-story to the serpent. The cross is the flaming sword that closes the path to the old Eden and opens the way to the new Jerusalem. And those who pass through it are not those who never fell, but those who were redeemed. God does not begin with the perfect. He begins with the chosen. He begins with Eve weeping, with Mary waiting, with Peter denying, with Paul persecuting, with you and me trying to understand why we fell and how we were loved despite it. The serpent wanted to establish its own lineage, and for a time it seemed to succeed. Cain killed Abel. Babel defied the heavens. Pharaoh enslaved the people. Herod pursued the innocents. Rome crucified the just one. But in each of these moments, God preserved the seed. He raised a Seth in place of Abel. He set apart an Abraham among idolaters. He saved a Moses in the womb of the Nile. He anointed a David among the rejected. And he sent a Jesus through a virgin hidden in Galilee. Because the promise cannot be extinguished. The heavens may fall silent, but the covenant does not die. It survives in the deserts, it whispers in the caves, it flourishes in the womb of impossibility. And now we look back and see that the fall of humanity was also the fall of the angel who tried to destroy it. Because God chose to redeem precisely what he tried to corrupt. He lifted from the dust what was cast down. He breathed again into the clay and brought forth a new creation. The image of God was not erased. It was restored. The breath of life, the Ruach, though wounded, was rekindled at Pentecost. The same Spirit that hovered over the waters in Genesis now dwells in us. The war continues, but the victory has already been decreed. And the serpent, it already knows its end. Because the Bible ends as it began, with a garden, but now an eternal garden, where there is no serpent, no death, no tears, and there the tree of life grows again. But only those with access to the seed may enter, the seed of the woman, the lineage of the promise, not the children of the flesh, but the children of faith, not the descendants of blood, but the heirs of the Spirit. That is why Paul says, if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. The genealogy has changed. It is no longer carnal, it is spiritual. And this lineage begins in the womb of faith, passes through the cross, and flourishes in the resurrection. Today, the same fallen angel tries to deceive us as he did in Eden. But now, we have the scriptures, the Spirit, and the promise. Now we know that it doesn't matter who came first, but who was called. And we were called, we were reached, we were redeemed to crush the serpent under our feet. Because in Christ all authority has been restored. And where there was shadow, now there is light. Where there was deception, now there is truth. Where there was dust, now there is glory. The secret buried in the heavens is that God always wins with the unlikely. With the weak, with the rejected, with the last. He chose Eve to bear the promise. He chose Mary to bring the Savior. He chose fishermen to shake the empire. And he chose you, with all your history, your falls, your deserts, to continue the lineage. The serpent still whispers, but now we know its voice, and we know the one who has already overcome. It is up to us to unearth the hidden treasures, to dive into the scriptures with open eyes and a sensitive heart, to read not only with the mind, but with the spirit, because the truth is there, not in dead letters, but in living revelations. And those who seek, find. Those who listen, understand. Those who surrender are used. Are you in the lineage of the promise, not by merit, but by choice, not by perfection, but by redemption? The same God who turned Eve's pain into hope, Mary's virginity into a miracle, Jesus' cross into a throne, wants to make your heart a new Eden, a place where the serpent no longer reigns, where the covenant flourishes, where glory dwells. The angel fell, but you were raised.